Live.
We are live.
You're good.
Right now
Hello.
we're live and ready to roll.
Yeah.
Cool. Hi guys. Hi everybody. Welcome back to our Facebook Live page. Today actually we have a very good friend of mine and Mrs. Stone's that I've known pretty much my whole life. This is Mr. Dan Dovidio. He's been studying the martial arts now for, 45 years or so? 46 years or so?
Probably too long term, yeah. 40
And he doesn't
plus.
even look a day older than 40, so I don't know how that works.
Well, you know what? I started kicking right out of the womb. I mean, that's just the way it went. No, actually, I didn't start karate till I was 19, so I wish I was fortunate, like you, to start when you were like a young teenager. I don't even think you were a teenager.
I
You
don't
might
even
have been
think
12,
I was.
right?
I think so.
Yeah, so you weren't even a teenager. So
It's crazy.
I started when I was 19, so it was,
So in our system,
So old.
yeah. So in our system, for those that don't know, there are 10 levels of black belt, and Mr. Dovidio recently, a year or so ago, got promoted to ninth dan, which,
a couple tests ago.
yeah, honestly, there really isn't many of them.
Right.
Not even on Okinawa now. They've all
Oh,
kinda
yeah.
passed on. So I think, there's not many 9th or 10th dans or even 8th dans, really. There's kind of few and far between. So,
Well, within our association, we have 5 ninth dans right now. Myself, Mr. Kelly, Mr. Rose, Mr. Burrows, and of course Judy Durkin.
Mrs. Durkin, yeah.
Yeah.
So what got you into the martial arts at the ripe old age of 19?
Well, I
Seems
was
like that's the age. Mr. Master
Actually,
started at 19 too, didn't he?
yeah, I think he was in the military,
Yeah.
and that's where he started. But I actually wasn't interested in taking karate, believe it or not. That wasn't something I was actually looking to do. I was bringing my brothers to karate, and that's how I was kind of introduced to it, but they had no interest into it. It was just me just dropped my brothers off to take karate. And that's kind of like how it went. And then I'd sit there and watch a class here and there. Then, of course, my interest started peaking, and then I eventually started. So that's how it kind of initiated it. So it wasn't something that I was actually looking to do. I just happened to fall upon it, and here I am today, still doing it. So, it has a lot of weight behind why I'm still doing it, and the journey is part of it.
And you're still with the same teacher you started with.
Correct. I've
So
only taken karate once. Well, I've only been to one school. Well, I can't say that now, but initially I was only at one school. I've been training with Mr. Durkin for 44, 3, 2, I don't know, somewhere around there.
And that's quite unique.
4.5.
That's quite unique now. I mean, there's not a lot of arts that I know of that have the longevity that A, Mr. Durkin has, and B, has the amount of seniors that he has. I mean,
Right.
especially with 40 plus years. I mean, you just named, what did you say, 5 of them?
Five
people
There's 5 of us right now.
that have
right?
got well over 40 years of training and have been with the same person for all those years. What do you think attributes that?
Well, I think a lot of it has to do with, of course, the instructor. I mean, the instructor is who keeps it fresh for you, or at least guides you to where you want to be. So it's usually a personal choice. It's not something that the instructor helps with it, but it's a personal choice whether you continue on with it or you just stop doing it. And I think Mr. Durkin just has that knack of working with people to keep them going. And of course, hopefully that transcends to us, like yourself, to our students. And that's basically what we're trying to do, is just kind of pass it on. And I think the passion that Mr. Durkin has is what it transcends to us. And so our passion is rejuvenated every time we go to class, and just the way he presents himself. And I hope that people kind of just pass that along. The way I look at it is, if I can teach one person, I'm doing pretty good. At least teach somebody that's going to continue it on, or they can pass it on. So I think that's probably the biggest contributor is the passion that he shows, and just in how we receive it. Because a lot of stuff has to do with that positive environment. I mean, this world typically has a negative connotation, and you can just look at any realm and you can see it. And a lot of times that gets pushed on us because we're out there in society living it, but it's the one place that we can actually go and feel good about ourselves and feel like we're contributing to ourselves. And to me, that's what attracted me. It was something that it was just me against me. It wasn't a sport thing where I had to worry about the other, person or the other teammate or, that competition. So to me, that kind of drew me to it. I mean, I was kind of into sports, but not really, because of that. I didn't like that competition between other people, and I felt this is a good way for me to just compete against myself, in a sense. So that's kind of like why one of the reasons why I kind of stuck with it over the years.
It seems too. I mean, from what I've known ever since I was like a kid, Mr. Durkin is so much, to me at least, a lot deeper than the physical. You had mentioned a lot of the transcending and all that stuff. I think, in order to have the amount of years that obviously you have, and I mean, I'm not a spring chicken, I don't think, in the martial arts either, or certainly not where you're at yet. But I think Mr. D not only cares a tremendous amount about his students, but I think, and I'm sure we've all gone through adversity with him,
Right.
challenges with him,
Right.
and he's always so willing to and able and open to listen, and
Right.
which
Yeah.
I think a lot of times that, I don't know, maybe doesn't happen as much in society these days. Everybody has such their strong way of thinking, and
Right.
to me, he seems very open. I mean, you would know
Yeah.
that better than anyone here.
Well, the thing is that it's a relationship. Just like you have a relationship with Mrs. Stone, and I have a relationship with my wife. We have a relationship with each other. So we make it what we want it to be. So the thing is that, yeah, we might have differences, but at the same time, we don't let them destroy the collective thing we've built. And that's kind of like really what it is. You may have differences or different opinions about things, but it shouldn't be the end all be all, because the positive thing that you get out of it is much greater than the so-called negative, which there isn't much really, if you think about it. Because I mean, it's a place where we go and we want to be there because it's a positive atmosphere. There's positive attitude there, and that's what we're striving for. And sometimes we need that injected into us 2 or 3 times a week to get past all the other crap that we're dealing with on a weekly basis. So that's kind of like why we do it. I mean, if it was something that was negative, we wouldn't do it, because as human beings, we naturally repel negativity. When we see something negative, we move away from it. So a lot of times we don't have that thing, that positive, or if anything that is positive, we kind of move towards it. And that's what the karate gives us, is that positive element. So that's kind of like, how I look at it. But, hey, who am I?
Someone who's been doing it
Just the guy, yeah, just the guy who's been doing it forever.
So let's break this down a little bit. So the first probably 10 years of your training, I don't know, I mean, I don't want to sound like it was a long time ago, but it was quite some time back. Do you remember what, like, if you go over each decade, the
Right.
first, the second, what are the biggest things do you feel that you grew out of each one of those decades that you train? And then what are you doing now that continues that? I mean, again, 46 or 45 years of doing this stuff,
You think you get bored at it? Is that
well, there's not only that, but I think, I mean, I think a lot of times people do feel that is certainly the case. I mean,
Right.
I think, at least for me, my way of keeping with things is the students.
Right.
The people that I get to share with on a daily basis. They're the one that kind of continue to motivate me and inspire me to grow more. But
Right. Well, when everyone starts, their reason for starting is different. Of course, I didn't have a reason to start. Like I said, it wasn't something that I was looking to do, but I decided to do it, and then of course that reason grew. So my first, we'll go by decades, seeing that you want to break it down that way. So my first decade was mid 70s into the mid 80s, where I was just trying to learn it. Now the intensity of the classes were a lot different.
I was just going to say,
so
what was the difference between then and now?
Right. So basically the classes were, on an average, everybody would do at least 3 to 4. If you did 5, then you had a good week, because of the intensity that we did. And they weren't hour classes. We're talking maybe 2 hours on or more. Maybe it's around 2 hours. And we would go through everything and beat the crap out of each other.
Those are the good old days, man.
But we were young. I can't even fathom going through that today.
Right.
You know what I mean? Because I'm just at a different place with it.
Yeah.
I'm a lot older. I can't heal as quick as I used to when I was 19 or, you know, in my 20s. So it's a type of thing where at that time we were hard-hitting, full throttle all the time. And that's kind of like just how it was back then, because a lot of people weren't doing martial arts. There wasn't a lot of schools out there to you know, to go to. Where today it's like, you know, even just in one town you've got, you know, a handful of schools that you can go to now. So it's just the mentality is just a little bit different than it was back then. So just kind of, you know, and the way I looked at it was kind of like I just wanted to do better, get better at it. And then I, you know, then I get to my black belt, because that's a level of proficiency that everyone's trying to achieve, is to get to that level of black belt. And once I got to that black belt, I said, all right, I made it. And then I realized, damn, I got more stuff I got to learn, or I'm not even near where I wanted to be. But what happens is your perspective changes from day one to your black belt. So maybe the reason why you came there is a lot different 3 years later, or 4 years later, 5 years later, because we didn't have the curriculum was a lot more involvement. You know, like it would take somebody 5-6 years to get a black belt, where now it's a little bit less. You know what I mean? So it's just the mentality and the way that things were done were a lot different back then. I mean, back then when we were doing tournaments and stuff, we didn't even have pads. I mean, that shows you how far it's come. You know, insurance, what's that? We don't need insurance, you know. But back then it was different. Nobody wore pads. I mean, or you would wear a cup, you know, if you felt like you wanted to protect, and that was it. And most of the times it was a mouthpiece and a cup, and that was it. And they weren't mandatory. You know what I mean? So, and I've seen a lot of bloody fights at the tournaments over the years. You know, Richie's Brandeis, his tournaments and stuff like that. But as you get to black belt, you kind of reflect on where you've been. And hey, where am I going? So, and probably towards that end of that last year is when we had our trip to Okinawa. It was in '84.
Yeah.
And when I went to Okinawa, we went there for 2 reasons: for the winter camp, and also for us to compete and work out with the dojos in Okinawa. And that was definitely a pinnacle for my training, only because I kind of had a purpose. Or something to prove to myself. Like I said, back to the competition, you against yourself, to see where or how I rate against all these other people that have been doing it for maybe equal or more years. So that's kind of like, that was pivotal for me. And working out the dojos, working at, you know, the headquarters with Mr. Uechi's dojo, and having him, you know, kind of Uechi watch my kata and maybe comment on the movement. He didn't really talk much. It was just more of, you know, he'd just give you hand gestures, and, you know.
You didn't want words.
If he smiled, you're like, good, I'm doing good, you know. But for the most part, it was an experience that I think everybody should do. At least go to Okinawa, work out in the dojos. I actually happened to fight in the All Okinawa tournament, so that was kind of like only a few of us can say we've done that, because the whole group that went over, I think there was 100, I don't know, maybe 30 of us or something, maybe more, I don't know. And there was only a handful of us that actually competed in the tournament. So it was good. And you actually had to qualify to get into the tournament. So the day before was where they had the qualifications. If you didn't make the qualifications, you weren't even in the tournament. So luckily I was able to beat my first opponent, my first 2 opponents, and it got me into the tournament. And I wound up fighting Miyamiya. And of course, Miyamiya is like an icon in Okinawa when it comes to uechi-ryu karate. And that was an experience in itself. But the thing is that I didn't feel intimidated, which that alone was good enough for me. So, on that world stage, because when you're on a stage like that, you're the only one up there.
It's like
even if you're doing a kata, you got that whole auditorium
it's
looking
like
at
Super Bowl, right?
Kinda.
Yeah.
Right. There's just 2 of you and the competitor on the stage, and that's it. So, I mean, it's a lot different than back in the States here, where we have 10, 15 rings going at the same time. So, you know, the attention is diluted a little bit throughout the arena. But there, it's like everybody focuses on you. So I thought that was a nice way to honor the competitors, that everyone's focused on you and that's it. So that didn't really jolt me any either. So, but I found it very inspirational. I learned a lot, and that helped me get to my next decade of training. You know what I mean? Which is just basically at that time my second decade, and so that would have brought me into the 90s, 1990s when I opened up my school. I went a good 10 years in Gloucester, and that was a whole nother learning experience in itself, opening up a dojo, which you know. And it kind of brings you to a different plateau of thinking. So now you're not the student, now you're responsible for other people and teaching them and how to get them to where you've been through, or at least show them a way so that they can travel the same path. Of course, it's going to be a different outcome personally, because like I said, it's a personal thing while you're there, and it does change as you go. So teaching gives you just a whole another plateau of learning as my, personally, as well as teaching and trying to pass it on and give it to other people. I was lucky enough, my wife started doing it with me. She wound up getting her 4th degree black belt. And she helped with the school. She was teaching, and she's a phenomenal teacher. I mean, when she works with the kids, I mean, she's phenomenal with them. And a lot of the students, even the adult students, really like working with her because she breaks everything down to, layman's terms as far as working the technique and the technical part of it. And, it's a kind of thing that everyone won't experience but should. So if you have a chance in your own dojo to teach, do it, because it's going to reinforce everything that you know, and at the same time, it's going to make you grow as a person and make you understand. Because I learn a lot of stuff from white belts. I'll see them do a movement, like, oh my God, I didn't know that would. That movement works, but you don't look at it because you're looking at more of the advanced instead of the basic stuff.
Right.
And that teaching of new students and junior students gives you that, and it just kind of elevates your training. So that's kind of like how I look at the training. Let me see, what are we on, decade 3 now? Oh my God, I didn't realize it.
Or we could even talk now. I mean, what keeps you inspired and motivated now after, I don't want to keep saying all these years, but after all these years?
Well,
I mean, you're still at the dojo training. You still go to Mr. Durkin's at least
Right.
once or twice a week.
Right.
Well,
probably once a week.
you're
right
still
now.
a very great ambassador for it because you're
I'm still teaching.
Drive all the way down to Gloucester.
I'm still teaching. Right now it's all virtual because the place I was renting a senior center, which is owned by the town. And of course it's a senior center. So who's more susceptible to COVID
Right.
than the seniors? So they had to shut it down. So right now my only option is virtual. Luckily I only have a handful of students where they've adapted it pretty well. It's funny because one of my students is started when this all came down. So I have a virtual student. So I'm wondering how he's going to fare when we get to that black belt level, which would be, within probably 2 more cycles of our testing, to see how that goes. Hey, this guy started virtually. He never, was face to face with any instructor. And I'm bringing him along, and he's itching to get into the class. He's like, oh man, I can't wait till the class starts, and so it's the type of thing I can't wait to see how that plays out. But
it's kind of a funny time now because I have a student too over in Hollis that I had a chat with him about a month or so ago, and he started right around March. When the whole actually no, it was later than that. But we were in COVID. We were we weren't really touching because we can't, right? So I said he asked me. He goes, so what is it like to actually hit someone? And I was kind of like, wow, that's a really unique question that I don't think I've ever had before. It was like, wow, what's it like to hit somebody?
Right.
I'm like,
Hey,
that's
yeah.
kind of weird. You haven't had that opportunity, have you? He goes, no. I started again back in
Right.
September, and we were in person, but again, we're keeping the 6 feet and the pods and the masks. And
Right.
so he's actually really excited as well to kind of get a sense of what that other stress level would be, right? I think
Right. Yeah.
stressful as you go through the learning process as a white belt or whatever when you're learning new things, but when you definitely have that interaction with somebody else, it can be a stressful type thing to deal with.
Oh yeah. If you're if you're actually engaging with somebody like on a regular basis and crossing arms and getting that sensation, and uechi is perfect for it because we do the conditioning, so you get a sense of what it's like to be hit. Even though we're not hitting you in vital spots, we're hitting you, so you're getting that vibration through your body, and you get comfortable with it.
Mm-hmm.
And that's one of the things that the virtual student is missing.
Right.
Eventually, they'll get it, but the type of thing that they're getting is more the technical part. So I think that will probably look stronger for them because that's really all you're working on. So hopefully, when they get into the dojo, that technical will hopefully transcend, and they'll be able to deal with it as once they build up their tolerance
Right.
of being hit. So that's kind of like how I play it. But with the pandemic and as martial artists, and we get in an altercation, what do we need to do? We need to adapt to that situation. So we don't know what's going to happen because it's all going to be dictated by what the threat is, and then we react to it. And that's what we did with the whole COVID and the shutdowns is we adapted to the way we teach by going virtual and giving it that alternative instead of just not doing anything at all.
Right.
Some people embraced it, most people did, and some people don't. Like I have a couple of students that, you know what, I'll wait till classes start back up again. I don't, virtual doesn't really work for me. That's because they've had a taste of the physical stuff.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Right.
So they feel like, well, it's kind of a waste of time. But you know what? You got to expect they're paying in, and hopefully they come back once the doors open back up.
Right.
So.
Which hopefully will be soon. I think with all the vaccinations that are going out, hopefully this summer will be a different look.
Right.
For sure.
Right. And then as I got higher in rank, by the teaching, it's good, and teaching the seminars at the winter camps and stuff like that definitely help. I also engaged in another style, which is Ruku Kempo Kyoshu-jitsu. The reason why I did it was because it gave me a sense of learning the pressure points and just how to deal with the body itself. Because the makeup of the body is very important on me trying to defend against a human being. And we were all the same, which is good because 2 arms, 2 legs, and we both have the same parts, so to say. So if I can learn how to manipulate those parts, that's just going to give me an edge. Or it's something that I can put in my toolbox to kind of add to my collective knowledge of martial arts. So that's one of the things that I've been pursuing, and I've been doing that for a few years, and I'm signed down in that system. So I'm just kind of working through that, and what I liked about it was giving me added value to what I already knew. It wasn't anything that I had to change, or it was just I'm just looking at the makeup of the physical structure, and how can I attack those weaknesses on that structure, and that just gave me that little injection of, hey, this is cool, something new to learn, you know what I mean? So that's kind of like where I'm at, and what I've been trying to do is give that to my students as well. And I don't give them like a ton of it, but I just give them enough to maybe explain something that they're already doing. So that's kind of like one of the things right now that I'm working with. That just keeps me inspired and wanting to learn more. So,
what do you got, Mr. Caden? Do you have any questions for Mr. Dovidio? Anything that you would like to add and share before we kind of maybe wrap things up for today?
I don't know.
While you think,
I'm running through all the stuff. I just kind of
ask me my favorite color.
Sure.
Blue.
I was going to say. Well, while you're thinking, I wanted to kind of, Mr. Dovidio has been, as you mentioned earlier, he's known me pretty much my whole life, and he's been very, very supportive of me in so many different ways and so many different challenges that I've had in my life, and I think one of the biggest things for me, other than my students, of course, in training, is the camaraderie and the family that I have with the seniors of the Butokukai. Right. Again, when you've grown up with someone, you kind of look at them as a brother,
right.
Or a sister, and it's I know I wouldn't be where I am in my training if I didn't have Mr. Dovidio in my life, along with the other seniors. But he is definitely really contributed a lot to me and has taught me a lot and shared a lot with me. And I'm really looking forward to continuing that. And again, we're very, very fortunate. I mean, he visits us in Hollis quite regularly.
I try to.
Yeah, and which is
I was doing it pretty regularly,
right?
At least once a month prior to the pandemic.
Yeah.
And then it was kind of like, then everything shut down, then I started coming like, maybe 8 months later or something like that.
But it's great because again, it gives people a different perspective,
right?
And obviously, like I said, you have more years, more experience than I, and more trial and errors than I, and it's always good to have your take on things and
right.
your willingness to share, which we always, obviously greatly appreciate.
Right.
And for you to take your day off today from work, and,
right.
and you're down here in Gloucester
right.
and spending the day with us. So, we really, really appreciate that.
Well, I think I try to come to Gloucester and maybe get a lobster. But yeah, I mean, like you were saying, giving your students a different perspective. Summer camp's coming up. I think it's the first week in August, 5th or 6th or something like that. That'd be a perfect opportunity for any students to come and get that perspective from other students. I mean, we're talking top-notch people around the country, maybe even out of the country, that come and teach at these seminars, and you just learn so much. And of course, at the same time, you're rubbing elbows with these people that have been doing it as long as I have, if not longer. So I think that's a good opportunity for people to kind of get that perspective from somebody else.
Yeah. Which is kind of unique too. I was thinking, years past, like with the Miamias and when you were down in Okinawa, all of those senior masters, unfortunately, have passed on. So it seems like a lot of the seniority now in Uechi is certainly
leaning towards us.
Towards us, a lot of the Americans, and
right.
Which is really, again, it attributes back to what Mr. Mattson did in '58 of bringing it here in the first place, and has grown so much in the States. And you have people like Mr. Durkin who have just constantly just keep giving back and sharing, and which is really cool.
Right.
So
the thing is that enjoy your training where you're at now, and don't be too frustrated, because I get people that say, "Hey, how can I be like you or get to where you're at?"
Don't worry about being like me. You be you.
You got to put 4.5 decades in, and then come back and talk to me. You know what I mean? So the thing is don't rush it. Just enjoy what you have, soak in what you can, because the thing is, when you get to our level, we're old. You don't want to be old. You know what I mean? So it's kind of like, you got to, that's the downside of having that rank, is that you're a lot older.
Right.
I mean, how many 25-year-olds that are 9th degree black belts?
Yeah.
There shouldn't be any.
There should, exactly.
If they are, they're all self-proclaimed.
Exactly.
So you got to understand that it takes time to get there. So don't rush it. Don't rush it.
But that life experience is what helps you obviously get there.
Oh yeah.
And that trial and error and failing and succeeding, and so. Excellent. Well, we appreciate it again, Mr. Dovidio, for taking the time to come out. And for those of you that are wanting to take class tonight, he'll be teaching the 7 o'clock adult class.
I am?
Well, he didn't know
I'm teaching
that.
the 7 o'clock class. So come on down.
So for those that are in live, great. If not, we'll see you virtually. And thanks, everyone, for coming on. We'll see you next week.
Peace
Bye,
out.
everybody.
Please don't forget to like and subscribe to LiveDanD.